Okay, those of you on YouTube joining me, just hold on just a second, if you would please. Let's see here. Trying to get live on Facebook again. Did it boot me out? Yeah, booted me out here. I don't even know where I was to go live here. Okay. So I'm on YouTube. I'm trying to get on Facebook to go live here also. And I think I'm straight. So I'm going to try and do two at once. Not sure how well this is going to work out, but give it a shot. Get as many audience members as possible. Okay, here comes. Okay, I'm live on Facebook. Okay. Everybody, this is James, Father's Rights and Resources with the hashtag How I Got Custody. So if you have any questions or comments or want some input, feel free to ask a question. Let me see if I can. I usually do YouTube on my phone, so that's what I'm used to. So sorry about this. Usually I get going right away. I'm trying to see where the comments are would be coming in. If somebody could come in here and say hello on YouTube, that would be cool. Or that'd be helpful, because then I could see if I'm seeing any comments at all. So if someone who's on there could just say hi or put an emoji or a wave or something in there. What I might do is I'm going to go online on my desktop in the background on the other side of this room here, and I'm going to see if I can watch from there to make sure I'm not missing anything. So there's Facebook, me being live on Facebook. And for some reason, it's not showing on my desktop that I'm live on Facebook. Where did you go for that? Well, let's just get started. If somebody made any comment on YouTube, then I'm not it's not showing. Maybe I need to refresh here on. There we go. Okay. I am live on Facebook, and I see that I'm up here. Live chat. Okay, there goes the chat. Okay. Wow, it's super delayed. Wow, that's really delayed on there. Okay, so let me look at the live on YouTube. Okay, so someone did say hello, but I'm not seeing it on this laptop. So that sucks. So I'm just going to watch the YouTube feed, and I'll answer questions there. So anyway, if you have a topic you want me to talk about and you don't even know how to formulate a question, you can just say, hey, can you talk about contempt? Can you talk about relocation? Can you talk about something you said I didn't understand? Can you talk about Troxel versus Granville? How do I find the laws or local rules in my state? Whatever. Even if you don't know how to formulate the question, just put it in your own words. Don't try and sound too fancy unless you really, really know what you're talking about. And I need to shrink this up. So, okay. So I can always sit down and talk about a million different things. If somebody gave me one topic and they wanted me to go in extensive detail, I could talk about any topic for like 2 or 3 hours. But every time I think of something, I start thinking of something else. Let me clean up this screen. Does that look cleaner? Not really, huh? Okay, so a couple videos that I posted recently, I want to expand upon that a little bit. I talked about, and you guys can jump in anytime with any question you have. or concern. And it doesn't have to be deep. If you're dealing, every single one of you out there that's watching, there's something that you don't know in your case, or something that you're struggling with, or something that, let me see if I can move this closer so I don't have to go back and forth with my head so much. You're struggling with something or whatever. You can even say, I'm struggling with something, and you don't know how to formulate a question. That's fine also. So that's going to be too wobbly. But whatever your issue is, you take advantage of this right now, because you're going to get free information you're probably not going to get anywhere else talking to me right now. So one of the things that I talked about recently was a lawyer who got on TikTok. I did a post recently. A lawyer got on TikTok. Whenever I wave my hand, it blocks me somewhere else. A lawyer on TikTok was saying, hey, the dad tried to do contempt with the mom. They have a 17-year-old kid. The kid stopped going to dad's house because he was being a rebellious teenager. He just didn't want to do it. Didn't want to go to dad's. Maybe he was alienated. Maybe he's just being a rebellious teenager. But the attorney, and it's typical of attorneys, the attorney said and left you guys hanging, or whoever was watching the video. He only had a couple thousand views on TikTok, so it wasn't that popular, but he left everybody hanging with no answer. He said, oh, the judge said I can't make a 17-year-old go. Okay. And the 17-year-old doesn't have authority to do anything in life, technically, unless they run away from home, or they move out, or get a divorce, or emancipated from their parents early. So the parents still have the legal authority. Troxel versus Granville says you have the authority to the care and custody of your kids. And a judge has ordered you to deliver a child, or a young, that's almost a young adult, still a kid, that they have to be delivered at a certain time. The judge makes a father deliver child support. He doesn't say, oh, well, if the dad doesn't want to pay child support, there's nothing I can do about it. The dad's over 17 years old. And a judge said, that's the first thing that would come out of my mouth. Your Honor, if you can't make a 17-year-old go by coercing a parent, if you can't make a 17-year-old obey a court order, then you can't make a grown man obey a court order. So you shouldn't find me in contempt if I stop paying child support. See, that would sound stupid. And I've done other videos before where I talked about use their own logic against them and flip it and show how stupid they are. That guy's logic was, I can't make a 17-year-old go. How do I apply that to contempt on child support? Because you know that they want to enforce child support because they get money for that, right? And they care more about money than they do about relationships or the mental health or well-being of a kid. And this is stuff you should point out in court. How come you're acting like money is more important than love or affection or relationship? Make them feel stupid. You don't have to call them stupid, but you can say stuff on the record that's pretty straightforward and pretty much in line with the law. Why would you do that? Change and then never wake up to how bigoted they are and their ways or whatever. And I mentioned marriage or ride out, just like the word riding a bike, and just like the word out as an outside, ride out. Just Google Washington Supreme Court marriage ride out and see how we have established out here. If a parent doesn't go, or a parent contributed to the kid's attitude to not want to go, then that parent can be found in contempt. And if you think about it, if a parent can't make a child go or influence a child or make it a positive experience, hey, you're going to go see your dad. You need to go see your dad. Oh, we can't make the child go. Oh, so this very courthouse, when that child doesn't go to school over 25 times in a year, you're not going to do a, I forgot the term now. It's, there's a term to get a juvenile in trouble or the parents in trouble if they don't go to school. And usually there's sanctions and penalties or potential jail time. And contempt carries the power of jail time. So the judge just basically lied. Either the judge is a pussy, a feminist, a sissy, or the judge is a fruity, wimpy, former attorney that never knew how to do contempt. So they take their practice as a lawyer into being a judge and screw people over like that. I got some questions already on YouTube. Let me answer these real quick. Um, Lewis down in Florida says, "Let's go, coach." Yeah, truancy. There you go. Thanks, Lewis. So, if a judge can't make a 17-year-old go to his father's when there's a court order and they have the power of contempt, the purpose of contempt is to court's compliance. The court has inherent power. See, when you walk into court with case law, like the case he's talking about, I'm sure that father say, or the father's attorney never brought up case law. Every single state has case law in their Supreme Court. The court has an inherent power to enforce its orders at all times. What's the most ultimate punishment? Sometimes they do with a monetary sanction or a warning or admonishment. The finding of contempt on paper in a court order in and of itself is supposed to coerce somebody. It's really not anything but a piece of paper. But some people get scared of it because in Washington State, if you look up RCW 26.09.260, in the first section, it talks about how you can change custody. The child's in danger, the parent's deviated, or one parent's been found in contempt 2 times in 3 years. Now, if you're not in Washington, you can still look at that and use that in court. There's persuasive authority and there's mandatory authority. If you're in, like I got a Lewis watching here, if you're in Florida, he's down in Florida. If you're in Florida and there's a Florida Supreme Court case that says judges have to do this and that, that's mandatory authority for all lower judges below the Supreme Court. There's mandatory authority for everybody in Florida to follow. But if you were to go in there and say, hey, Washington has this thing where in their Supreme Court, they made a finding that, or a holding that if a parent contributes to a child's bad attitude, that parent can be found in contempt. You should seriously consider that. They don't have to consider it, but it's called persuasive authority. They can be persuaded by that authority. They could adopt that. The higher courts, if you ever appeal it, if you mention it in the circuit court or district court or superior court, whatever your main level court is, and then when you appeal later on, you can tell the Court of Appeals, hey, we should adopt this. And the Court of Appeals might say, hey, we've never had this type of situation. This is a case of first impression on this issue. This is the first time we've addressed this. We're going to adopt Washington's policy. But see, nobody ever brings this up or tries to unbrainwash the judges or draw attention to this stuff. So the judges never change. So, okay. So again, those who just jumped in, feel free to ask questions. I'm trying to monitor. I have to monitor on my desktop because this laptop is not showing the feed of the questions. So I'll get to questions. So anyway, it's bullcrap that a judge can't make a 17-year-old do something. It's really a contract between the parents. The court order is an order that the parents deliver the child, just like one parent is ordered to pay child support or pay alimony or pay the bills or to pay the mortgage. Guess what happens if they don't do that? They get found in contempt and they'll garnish stuff or they'll take it from them or they'll do it by force. What I meant to say earlier is that every state has a Supreme Court case law that says the purpose of contempt is to coerce compliance. Courts have inherent power to coerce compliance with their orders. And this judge just lied and said he doesn't. I would have said, Your Honor, actually, the Supreme Court of the state says that you have the power to coerce compliance. And you're saying you don't. So if I don't pay child support and I'm over 17, you can't make me do it because you can't even make a 17-year-old do something. But the parent should be able to. And if the judge says, well, the parent doesn't have control of the child, well, that's an unfit parent, so I should have custody. She can't handle the child. She can't make the child do it. The court order says this is what's best for the child. What if that parent wasn't giving the child food? And this is where you got to use common sense and throw that in along with the laws. If the mother was not giving the child food or wasn't giving the child medicine he needs for a special medical need, would you say, oh, we can't make the child do anything? Or let's say on my visit on the weekend, I have to give him the medicine and I'm not doing it. Wouldn't you do something to stop that from happening? Okay, so how come time with the father is so low on the totem pole? You say it can't even be enforced, and everything else can be enforced. So you got to use some common sense examples on that. And the fact that that attorney did that video and then left everybody hanging and didn't even know what to say, showed what an incompetent idiot that attorney was, like most family law attorneys. Okay, so I'm going to go from the bottom backwards, most recent backwards. Okay. James, can you provide physical evidence in family court that perjury was committed by the mother when she swore under oath in family court? What are the steps? Thank you. I mean, that's just straightforward. You just say, hey, look, here's a sworn statement of hers saying that I don't drink. Here's pictures of her on Facebook drinking alcohol. She lied, or whatever the proof is. Just submit it in court and attach exhibits. If you got video, a lot of times these courts don't allow you to submit video at these temporary order hearings unless you have a special evidentiary hearing where you can act like trial. You can put witnesses on the stand. You can have a projector in the room or whatever. And you give everybody a CD copy or a flash drive copy or just an email direct copy of a video that you're going to present at the hearing. But that's pretty straightforward. If they lie and they commit perjury or whatever. But see, the civil court doesn't care about perjury. They're not going to enforce it and throw them in jail or anything. They could make a referral to the prosecutor. But it's just like any other crime. If somebody steals your bicycle or your car or your jewelry, you call the cops, and the cops decide to take a report. And then sometimes the cops won't even take a report on something simple as perjury because it's so common they don't even care. It's like for a while, I know carjacking or stealing cars was no big deal to the police or the authorities. They would just arrest you maybe and then put you back out on the street or not even bother arresting you because there's so many cases like that. So they're mainly not going to care, but everybody's so focused on perjury. You should be focused on Civil Rule 11. That's where you can sanction and punish somebody because they lied, they knew it was a lie, or the lawyer didn't research enough to find out whether it's true or not. That's enough to sanction an attorney. Go read Civil Rule 11. Look at my video on YouTube on Civil Rule 11. Whenever an attorney or party signs something, that's a guarantee that they investigated it. It's truthful. It's not done for any improper purpose. Says it's harass, burden, or delay somebody. It's brought in good faith. And then within the rule, Civil Rule 11, it says if anybody violates this rule, they could be sanctioned, punished. Usually that's a monetary sanction, $250 for the mom, $1,000 for the attorney. And then and then you should look up case law on Civil Rule 11. There's case law in Washington that says that the rule says that your signature guarantees you made a reasonable inquiry. Just like a prosecutor, if they're going to charge somebody with murder or let's say robbery, they got surveillance video, they got fingerprints. The guy that you caught looks like they had a mask on, but they took it off and it looks like him. So that's enough to have enough proof to be able to prove it. But they have to their detectives have to do a little work. A lot of times they know they got the bad guy and they know they got the guy who did it, but they can't prove it because there's no dead body or there's no this or that. And they won't even file charges because they have an oath as an attorney not to frivolously abuse the process. So prosecutors lay off that more than family law attorneys do. But family law attorneys will just believe whatever the client says. And in Washington, it says that blind reliance upon your client is not a reasonable inquiry. So Civil Rule 11 says your signature guarantees that whatever you wrote on that paper, the father's abusive, the father's crazy, he's mentally ill, that the attorney made a reasonable inquiry, like looked into it. Well, what did he do? Let's see some text messages where he threatened you or whatever proof. And then case law from the Washington Supreme Court says that Civil Rule 11 means that an attorney didn't just blindly rely upon their client. They made a reasonable inquiry under the circumstances. So I wouldn't focus on perjury as much because perjury is a crime. The prosecutors never. You could throw it in there and say, look, this lady committed perjury. The attorney helped her commit the crime of perjury. The attorney and her both violated Civil Rule 11. The attorney violated his oath. The attorney violated multiple rules of professional conduct, candor toward the tribunal, and abused the process toward me. And that's a type of tort. If you guys go watch my video on Civil Rule 11, then you'll see some of those arguments. So that's my main answer to that. Her doll 777 says courts make him back pay a different amount than what was previously ordered and already paid. Oh, dad always paid on time. His income did increase over the years, but he also got more custody. Support was not reevaluated since the original order. If mom has it evaluated, can the courts make him back pay a different amount? Okay, so the dad earns more, but he's had more time, and it's not reevaluated. Well, if the dad wants to lower child support because he has more time, he needs to file with the court. If he didn't file with the court, that's his problem. Usually, when you're talking about back pay, usually whenever you file, let's say the court order is back here. I don't know if this how this reflects. So this is back in the past. This might look like the future. Anyway, you have an original order, and then no, let's see here. I'm trying to look at my reflection in the. So you have an original order, and then you want to modify this point in time. So let's say this is 2020, and now you want to modify in 2026. Okay, this gap in time here, that's the order of the court. If you modify from here, I've never seen it. There might be a state that does something weird, but usually you don't get to do anything going back before this period of time. Okay, or that should be that's how I should say that. Yeah. So here's the first order. You come down a few years later and you want to modify. This new date, that's the new order from this point forward. They will not go back and do back pay in most states. We have to check the law in your state. I'm doing a little bit of everything for research preparation. I have been using your resources, but I feel like I keep going too deep in certain aspects, such as research and details of law. Well, you can never go too deep, but it's just like studying for a test or an exam. If the exam is next Monday and you got 5 chapters to study and you spend all Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning on chapter 1 and you still need 4 more chapters, it's time to get off of chapter 1 and try and divide up the time. Without knowing all the details of what you're talking about, you want to divide up your time with the important stuff. So let's say you're going to court and you need to do contempt and you also want to modify because the mother's being abusive and stuff like that. So you're looking up laws on contempt. You're looking up laws on abuse or basis for modification in case law. I mean, if you want to move as soon as possible because your kid's being abused, alienated, or neglected, then you're going to want to move as soon as possible. So you don't want to sit around and wait while you're researching. If you get a juicy enough argument, I always want to make a move immediately. If it's not time to make a move yet, I got time to study. If it's time to make a move now, make a move, learn something. Don't just walk into court with no knowledge of modification law or knowledge of contempt or whatever. Don't just walk into court without any knowledge, but get some knowledge, but then keep just studying as you're going. You file something, you have a motion, you have a court hearing in 2 weeks, and just keep hammering and studying away. You're never going to learn everything. Attorneys don't even know everything. They know how to go look stuff up. So if you know how to go look stuff up, then you can know everything. That's why the hype of an attorney is overhype, because attorneys just know how to go look stuff up. Now, a lot of them, they've been looking the same thing up over and over, so they have some things memorized, just like anything else in life. But an attorney is now just like Google. Most of what an attorney does is go look up the law and do paperwork. Think about how many times you've been in court compared to if you've been in a divorce case for a year, you went to court 3 or 4 times. You had a hearing 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes. That's a few minutes out of a year's period of time. What has your attorney been doing? Talking to you, writing letters, doing deposition. Well, most attorneys don't even do that. Mediation, negotiations, talking to the guardian ad litem. So the attorney, you could do all that stuff. And you got more time to do more research on something specific your attorney may not get around to until until they're done with 4 other clients. That's one advantage of representing yourself. You're not juggling 20 other cases like an attorney is. Another advantage is you actually care about your case and your kid. The attorney doesn't. It's just a job to them. And then you have your life memorized. An attorney can't possibly know everything about your case. And even if they learn everything, they really can't memorize it and be able to argue stuff on the fly when they go to court and they make an objection and they bring up something new out of the blue. You know the answer to that. Your attorney might have to turn and whisper to you in court, like, what was that about? What did they say? So so as far as learning stuff, learn everything you can. But if you're getting stuck and you don't feel like you're moving forward, then just move forward and go back to that other stuff later or whatever. I mean, if you learn the statutes in your state and you learn a couple of pieces of case law on it, you're way ahead of the game. And if you know Troxel versus Granville, like in Washington State, the link's on my flow page. When you guys go to my flow page, which is under every YouTube video, in the description of every Facebook, the main page of my YouTube, the main page of my Facebook, or the pinned video on Facebook, the bio on TikTok, the bio in Instagram, all have links to my flow page. And I have links to different states and countries with resources there. So if you go there and you scroll down, I have 4 links to Washington State because I just know Washington State so well because that's where I'm at. And one of the things in Washington State is the best custody case for fathers. And if I have a resource up there and you've exhausted all the stuff or you can't find stuff, you may want to look at stuff like a state right next to you. Like I tell everybody to look at my New York link. I have 3 links to New York, 3 links to New York. One of them is a piece of case law that says that a parent who alienation is so bad for a kid that a parent who alienates is unfit to have custody. And there's some states out there that think alienation is junk science. I know New Zealand or some parts of Australia think alienation is bullcrap and it's junk science. Well, if the state of New York is acknowledging it, the state of New York, with one of the greatest, grandest cities in the history of the world, New York City, leading in public policy and culture and influence worldwide, a hub for business, a hub for culture, a hub for influence. If they're saying that alienation is real and it's so bad that it endangers kids, so the parent doing it cannot possibly have custody, then the court should consider it. And then you have scientists, you have doctors and psychiatrists acknowledging it too, including the paper that I have on my flow page from the Psychiatric Times. So some of you don't even need to do much research. You go to my flow page, you look up, there's my section that says must see information. There's information if you got an infant or a toddler or a kid under 4, or kids in general, how they suffer without a father involved, without love of bonds of both parents. Those are scientific papers I have. Then I have a scientific paper on alienation being just as traumatic to kids as physical and sexual abuse. It's not the same act. The act of the physical is worse, but the resulting trauma is the same. So you got some science, and then in a lot of states I have these laws, and then if you got the laws in your state and you can't find stuff that's similar, like especially in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, or states near New York, you could say, look, our progressive neighbors to the north or south over here in New York, they say that alienation is so bad that the alienating parent shouldn't have custody. And then here's some evidence that it's just as bad as physical and sexual abuse. You wouldn't leave a child with a child molester, would you, Your Honor? Of course you wouldn't. So let's rescue the kid from here and follow the science. See, a lot of you guys, if you just use the stuff that's in my flow page and found the statutes in your state, you're going to be way ahead of the curve. You're going to be arguing more than these attorneys. So, but don't be satisfied. Nothing's ever good enough fully 100%. You should always be learning and growing and stuff. But some of you guys don't even use my stuff on my flow page. It's free. So I answer that. Jonathan Conrad says not in Connecticut. Not what in Connecticut? I caught the silver bullet bad, came to my house, busted down my door because we arrest by way of information here in Connecticut. I don't know what you mean by way of information. You talking about when somebody makes a report and presses charges on an information form? I'm not sure what Jonathan Conrad, I'm not sure what you're talking about. That sounds like every single state. A woman says I'm being abused. If you're talking about you're falsely accused of domestic violence, a woman says I'm being abused, and the cops come in all revved up and amped up, and they'll automatically arrest somebody sometimes. That's in every state. You know, I can't prevent a cop from abusing their authority or making a bad decision, but I've helped, I don't know, probably thousands of guys fight off bogus restraining orders and deal with criminal DV cases. Most of the time, they already got a criminal DV case before they get a hold of me. So I can't prevent that from happening usually, but I don't know what, Jonathan, here, you have to clarify what you're talking about. But if you're saying not in Connecticut, yeah. Or I'm not sure what you were talking about, because I was talking about, I didn't catch when exactly you asked that. But if you're saying Connecticut is different than everywhere else, no, it's not. But if you're in Connecticut, I got a bunch of free stuff for Connecticut. I got 2 links to Connecticut stuff in my flow page. So if you've been watching me and you haven't looked up the Connecticut case law and the Connecticut information, then you're not even attempting to do the basic fundamental stuff that you could easily do for free. So hopefully he's not just popping in and popping out. If you're still out there, Jonathan, clarify, what are you talking about that's different about Connecticut? I've seen it, bro. They block me. I don't know what that means. When you guys say he, them, she, they, I don't know what you're talking about. They block me. So if you're talking about the mother blocking you from your kids, I don't know what that means either. We're here I'm here to help people who are not seeing their kids, got a restraining order, got a protection order, got little visitation, and it's bullcrap. You got to get on the offensive. Oh, are you talking about the perjury thing? Dude, I've got so much, the judge and the court. Okay. You got to have a little bit more detail. I'm not getting anything out of what you're saying. If you're talking about the perjury thing, I already said that most people won't press charges for perjury. What you have to do is go off of Civil Rule 11. But just so you guys know, there almost never is a win at one particular hearing. If the mother's taking you to court for a restraining order, you may not win that. You can still win in the long haul and get the restraining order reversed down the road or at trial, or get custody of the kids even with a restraining order. Or eventually, the way that you win, the best chance a guy has to, now listen very carefully, this is how guys win in court. It's the war of attrition. Getting on the offensive and hammering away and not quitting and not giving up. Women come to court, they do the silver bullet, get a restraining order, and the guy is already psychologically tortured. Then they get alimony. Then they get child support. Usually a guy doesn't give up overnight. Some guys do, but the vast majority of them are beat down and beat down and beat down till they surrender when it comes close to trial or the first option of mediation. And what you do is you say, please make this go away, whatever it takes. I just want this to end. That's the war of attrition. They're beating you down. Now, maybe they won some hearings. Maybe they won a couple and they didn't win some others, but you're still beat down. That's what actually happened with the Grizzly Adams guy, President Father. And I've said this. See, this is where you guys will see me tell the truth. I'm not just going to bash somebody and I will forever bash them. President Father may get full custody, but he was a sellout because he gave the mom 50-50 when she was an abuser and his attorney was willing to go for supervised visits. He should have went for that to get control, but he was a pussy and a simp, or he's still in love with his baby's mom. And he has this idea of, I'm just going to do the right thing. And you think you're going to win brownie points or Cub Scout points or some ribbon because you're doing the right thing. You need to go rescue your kids. And then while you're in control, do the right thing. Because if you're in total control of your kids, you can let the mom see them whenever you want if you feel like it. But if you half-ass it with this, let's just share and I'll work with a baby mama terrorist, you can't negotiate with terrorists. But President Father, Randy, The Grizzly Adams looking dude, the Wolfman Jack looking dude with the big beard and the deep voice who's always out in the woods, blonde, brownish, blondish hair. He's always walking in the woods or sitting in his truck. All he did was complain about the mother alienating and abusing the kids, but he served them up to get abused. The mother at trial said, you know what? He can have custody. I just want every other weekend and give me decision-making. Well, that's stupid. She'll get decision-making. Now, his judge is going to take it on. His last video on his case was he went to trial. The mother doesn't want custody. So now he's willing to take custody because the mother did. See what a simp he is? If the mother says it, then I'll go ahead and do it. If the mother wants 50-50, I'll appease her. That's being a simp to Jezebel. But he may get custody. The judge may say, well, the kids are used to 50-50, so I'm not going to do it. He thinks he's getting custody. I wouldn't be surprised if he got it. I wouldn't be surprised if the judge said 50-50. But this is an example. Someone I think is an idiot and a sellout and is a fake and a phony and a fraud that charges $250 an hour to give his bad legal advice to you in a one-on-one session. That guy, he kept at it. So you got to give him credit for hanging in there until the end. He spent all his kids' money, all his college fund and all that other stuff. But he kept at it all the way until the end. And the mother got worn out and surrendered. That's the war of attrition. She doesn't even want custody anymore. That's the war of attrition. That's how you win. So everybody knick-knacking about, well, I lost this hearing, or they did this to me, or they did that to me. I guarantee you did something wrong. I've never had a consult with somebody and they told me the details of their case. And I'm like, oh, you did that perfectly right. I always find 3, 4, or 5, or 6, or everything that they've done, they did it wrong. And that helped the other side win. Now, if you fight the right way or say the right thing, that might not be any guarantee you're going to win. But if you do stuff wrong, you're helping the other side. So a lot of guys, they're so traumatized by one hearing or one incident, they got found in contempt, or they got a restraining order, or they got bullied into copying a plea to domestic violence, that when I say something like that doesn't work because I got railroaded. No, you did it wrong. You got railroaded because you did it wrong. And I'm not discounting when somebody abused the process or lied. I'm talking about the way you countered their lies and stuff. You likely did it wrong. But even then, if your case is not over, if your kids are not almost 18, there's still a chance. There's always a chance to go back and fix this stuff. So, okay, Jonathan said, I hear you there. So maybe he got what I'm saying. But you can't come to me and say, oh, this didn't work, or this sucks, or that didn't work. If you're coming on here just to tell me how bad the court system is, I already know that. You should be coming on here to get answers, not tell me what's wrong with the system or how bad it is. I've been doing this 25 years. You're a rookie in this. Whoever you guys are, watch me. Don't come on here and educate me on how bad the system is. I was in it for 19 years myself. I was in and out of court. I have 1,150 documents in my file. The average hotly contested divorce has anywhere from 200 to 400 documents. Okay? So I know all this stuff already. You don't need to come on here and educate me and get in your feelings about how bad the system is. We already know that. This is what I get sick of with these fathers' rights groups. All they ever do is cry and whine about the system. And then here comes another bunch of rookies coming in and saying, I just got blindsided. Here's my story too. And then they get hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers. And that's all people are doing is just dumping. And nobody ever has an answer. Nobody's looking for an answer. Everybody just wants to vent. And it's just a big piss party. Everybody just, venting about the court system. So we already know it's bad. What are we going to do about it? If Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers and anybody else came along and said, and they just went to some private party or some private rally that nobody ever televised or saw and said, this is really bad. Jim Crow is really bad. The way they treat black people is really bad. Do you think they would have got anywhere if they didn't go out in public? And if Martin Luther King didn't have a speech on the White House lawn or at the monument, and they didn't push for stuff? And it really wasn't the Civil Rights Act that did anything. I'm putting stuff on paper doesn't mean jack squat. That only opened the door for people to sue people. What really changed was the culture and climate of the country. People saw black folks getting sprayed by hoses and attacked by dogs and like, oh my God, look what they're doing to them. I didn't know it was that bad. And look at, white folks who thought black people were dumb. Look at how articulate Malcolm X is, or look at how, wow, they're really human. and they started seeing them as human. The culture shifted. That's what changed. You can't have a law just like right now in family court. In family court, we got we have a bunch of great laws. We have great laws in family court. The best interest of the child. Which parent is willing to facilitate a relationship with the other parent? Which parent puts the child first? Who's been performing parenting duties or has the potential for it? If there's violence or child abuse or emotional abuse, whatever. Those are great laws. The court has to consider that. And in Washington, some of those things like domestic violence, child abuse, which alienation is, those are mandatory reasons to restrict the other parent. Those are great laws. So what's the problem? The judges' hearts are corrupt. They think women can do no wrong and men are bad guys as soon as the mother labels them. There's a guy, and I just posted this on Facebook a little bit ago. I reposted this guy. I think it's Dad Needs Kids. Dads or Kids Need Dads. Kids Deserve Dads on Facebook. This guy in South Dakota saying, we're going to pass a law for 50-50. I said, here goes the 10,000th fathers' rights group saying, here we go. We're going to pass a 50-50 law. And it even says in one post, 50-50 laws with violence exceptions. And I reposted and said, this is what the problem is. These guys have been talking about this for 40 years at least, maybe 60. But for 60 years, we've been whining and crying since Kramer versus Kramer, Dustin Hoffman movie, other movies that reveal how bad being a divorced father is. Tootsie with Robin Williams, and then we've seen the divorce court movie in 2010, 2012. Everybody thought, oh, everything's going to be great now because a movie came out. That's the I need a savior complex that guys always have. Instead of you going and rescuing your kids, you're waiting on somebody else to fix it. But this Kids Deserve Dads guy, he said, well, how are you supposed to fix it if you don't change the laws? That shows you how dumb and low IQ and what a bunch of numbnuts these idiots are. A guy goes to court and loses in court, and he says, I lost in court, I must change the laws. You didn't even read the laws in your case. South Dakota, and I asked him, I don't know if he's gotten back, and I said, tell me one bad law in it's South Dakota is like 24A something as a statute. Tell me one bad law, because it has all these great factors you have to consider. And all those factors, if you go and tell the truth and you prove your case, you should be getting custody away from an abusive, alienating mother. But this guy wants to change the laws. And if judges are ignoring that law, and it's usually because you guys don't argue it the right way, you guys don't unbrainwash the judges. We talk all the stuff we talk about on Facebook pages and in groups and off the record. And your attorney even says it off the record. And I see attorneys say it in the court hallway. As they walk out of court, they talk about how screwy the court system is, but they never say it in court when it counts. The judges are oblivious. The judges in Jim Crow South knew there was a civil rights movement going on because it was in the streets and it was everywhere. And people were changing their minds about dividing the races and separate but equal and all that other stuff. And there's a Supreme Court case that did help influence the culture of judges and stuff to a point. But there are people still getting screwed in court. It's the heart of the judges interpreting and misapplying the law. So if you pass new laws, the judges are still going to ignore them, especially if you don't make the arguments in court. And it's not going to happen overnight. But every single one of you should be arguing to the fullest everything that's to your advantage. And then you don't. You guys believe your attorneys, and you bow down and worship your attorneys like they're your Lord and Savior. And your attorney says, no, don't go in there and attack the mom. Don't talk about her child abuse. That'll make you look bad. You're saying that she's a child abuser, when that's a winning point to help you get custody in the law. And you're in a court of law. Nobody tells a prosecutor, oh, don't talk about that rapist really bad. You'll hurt their reputation. Nobody gives a crap about that. You go in, the point of going to court is making you look good and the other side look bad. Everybody wants to talk about all the fringe stuff. Okay, this happened to me, so whatever you're saying, James, doesn't matter. I'm going to shut you out. No, what I did worked, and it worked for thousands of other people. And the system isn't changing anytime soon. And I've been watching laws change, states with 50-50 laws, and people are still getting screwed. Why? Because the judges do whatever they want. And if the women are getting custody because they falsely accuse men of child abuse and domestic violence, if you have a new law that says, oh, rebuttal presumption, 50-50, unless there's abuse or domestic violence, what do you think the women are going to say in those cases to make sure you don't get 50-50? So the guy for Kids Deserve Dads, My sister with Down syndrome has better deductive reasoning than that idiot. He's like, what are you supposed to do if you don't change the laws? Well, you have to change the culture of the court. You have to go in and change your legal strategy. You have to put pressure on the judges. You have to fire the judges. I've talked about this for years, but nobody wants to answer because the guy on Kids Deserve Dads. See, a lot of these guys get into these fathers' rights groups, and this is their baby. Their ego is wrapped up in it. Like, I'm going to pass a law. I'm going to save the system. You didn't go in there and save your kid, but now you got all this energy into saving the system because your ego gets a boost because you have these photo ops with these sellout politicians. And I've seen guys, they're passing legislation or talking about it, and they go in, and then when the legislature finally finishes their session, they write a law that doesn't even look half of what they thought it was, the fathers' rights group thought it was going to be. I've worked with fathers' rights groups who've done that. And then I said, you guys pass this law, it doesn't really help. Like, I know a fathers' rights group that passed a child support law, and I'm like, this is screwy. It only helps dads doing overtime for a certain period of time, not for life. And they're like, we didn't write it like that. I'm like, you didn't even read this stuff after you went through all that? And like, I don't got time. So these fathers' rights groups, they lost in court. They didn't know how to win. So they say, let's change the laws. And then we have to put an exception to the law for domestic violence and child abuse. So we'll put that in there and we'll leave it up to the judge. Or they'll say, we're going to make a new standard, instead of preponderance of evidence, it's clear, cogent, and convincing evidence. But all the judge has to do is say, by preponderance of evidence, or by clear, cogent, and convincing evidence, or beyond a reasonable doubt, I believe the mother. It's just a rubber stamping formality. Ray Lautenschlager from Ohio Family Rights in Ohio, I was arguing with him. He said, we're going to pass a law that says clear, cogent, and convincing evidence, so it'll make it harder for women to prove. I said, you stupid jackass. The judge does whatever they want right now. What makes you think they're not going to just say rubber stamp, clear, cogent, and convincing evidence, she proved that you're a domestic violence perpetrator? It still comes down to your word versus hers, and it's just the title, preponderance or clear, cogent, and convincing. You don't think anybody's gone to jail innocent before? You don't think the court system has screwed up before? The criminal court system has jailed people wrongly. Central Park 5 went to jail. That woman testified, oh, these guys are the ones who raped me, even though I was passed out and blacked out while I was being raped. Those are the guys. And they went to prison for 17 years until the real rapist confessed. And it was only one. And she said all 5 of these guys did it. So she lied, and they believed beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, they probably could have had reasonable doubt, but they probably had these kids look like they did it, or these kids look like knuckleheads, so I'm going to convict them. A jury can still do whatever they want and say that we believe beyond a reasonable doubt. But Ray Lautenschlager, he hates my guts because I told him this truth. And now he's running around lying to people and saying the only reason I got custody is because I withheld the child and took off out of state without the mother's permission. I have no idea what he's even talking about. Me and my daughter barely went out of our county for 5 or 6 years. I didn't take her out of state until I took her to Oregon, where my family lives in Portland, like when she was 3 or 4 one time after I got full custody. I mean, anyway, he's just making up bullcrap because he's mad because I was right. And he still didn't even get his law passed. If his law got passed, it wouldn't work. So anyway, I think you guys get my point. These fathers' rights groups are full of crap. And if they're going to pass a law that says 50-50, it should be automatic. They say rebuttal presumption. That means there's a presumption that there'll be 50-50 unless the other side rebuts it or proves it wrong based on domestic violence, child abuse. The father wasn't around. He abandoned. He was at work too much. He didn't really do parenting duties. There's a million things the mother can do to trump it. Actually, in Missouri, they have an exception that says unless the judge thinks it's not in the best interest of the child. So you're right back at square one. So the judge says presumption of 50-50. Unless there's abuse, this, that, or unless the judge just thinks it's not in the best interest of the child. They're so stupid in Missouri. And Mark Ludwig, the big fathers' rights movement dude who looks like the actor in Hangover with the tattoo, Mike Tyson tattoo around his eyes. He used to be on Comic Views News with Jon Stewart. Anyway, that guy is a twin. Mark Ludwig is a twin of this guy, and he helped write the Missouri law. He's influential, and the law basically defaults back to the best interest child. These guys are so stupid and idiotic, and I'm being extremely nice. I can't have enough words about how dumb and idiotic these fathers' rights groups are because they haven't changed. There hasn't been a dent in the system since the 70s or 60s when they started turning everything over to women. they're a bunch of liars and fakes and phonies, and they really don't know what they're doing, and they pretend they do. But like I said, their ego is caught up in it. This is my baby. I'm going to be a hero. I'm doing photo ops with legislators, and it makes me feel good, and I get sexually aroused doing it because it's the first time in my life that I've ever done anything this important. And then I come by and say, it's not going to work, dude. The only way that this rebuttal presumption means they just have to think about 50-50 first. Oh, I consider 50-50, but it should be 90-10. And as long as they go through this stuff, or they at least announce at the end of trial that they went through it, that's good enough. And you're not going to win an appeal if you didn't make the certain arguments that you should. And this is where I come in. It's insane to me that I'll see a video where, like, I just did a video on relocation cases, and it has a significant amount of views. It has like 1,000 something. Most of my views are like 200 or 300 on YouTube nowadays. This one had like 1,000. My phone should be ringing off the hook after people saw that, and they saw me talking about arguments they've never heard before. But nope, I don't hear a peep, because people are like, oh, wow, that's really entertaining, and that's it. And I've done a video recently. The Father's Rights Movement is just big entertainment. A lot of you guys just watch this for entertainment. You're not watching to learn. You don't have a thirst or a desperation or a sense of urgency. I need to learn everything I need to know to fight for my kid. So you don't get help, or you go out and you struggle trying to figure this stuff out. And people will call me weeks, months, even a couple of years after they get screwed in court. And like, I had a guy call me the other day. He has trial coming up. And he's like, I tried these motions, and he's talked to me before. I said, dude, what are you doing only calling me now? He said he had several hearings where he filed it wrong and they weren't even heard it. I'm like, why didn't you call me? It's like, these guys keep coming back to me knowing that I know a lot of the answers, and I tell them stuff that they never heard before, and I give them good arguments, and I help people prepare for trial or prepare for court. And then people wait until, as a last resort, they didn't figure it out. They couldn't afford an attorney. They were trying to save for an attorney, and they waited and waited and waited, and they're behind the 8 ball further because they didn't act, and they're still not seeing their kid when they should have called me 8-10 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago, so we can do it right at that moment when you need to. We're our own worst enemy, to put it nicely. Okay, I think I got a couple more comments that I didn't answer. Okay. So Jonathan said, I'm just seeing this comment, depending on the money flows. First of all, it's free to represent yourself. The money flowing has nothing to do with anything. We already know they want to give custody to moms, and they want to collect child support from dad. Okay, now where do you go from here? I already know all that stuff. Where do you go from here? I don't need to know all your gripes and whining and crying about the system. We already know that. I want to spend zero time on that. Do you want to win your case, or do you want to win? You want someone in the courthouse to admit we were wrong. A lot of guys get their ego caught up in, they wronged me. I want them to apologize. I want to fix it. I want to go back and argue the same thing. I should have won the way that I did. If you talk to me and you get a consult and you learn how to fight the right way, and you never even thought of it, and you go and fight and you get your kid, are you going to be mad because your ego didn't win it the way you wanted to? Or are you going to be glad that you got your kid? Dads are up here in their feelings and emotions along with their ego, and they won't let it go and say, oh my God, I came across somebody who won in court. I lost in court. I may have done it wrong. Yeah, the court should have presumed that you're a good dad. The court should have done this. And did you argue Troxel versus Granville in your case? No. Then why not? Oh, I didn't know about that. Well, why didn't you get some help from somebody who won in court? Well, they should have just done it the way I told the truth. So did the Central Park Five, and they went to prison for 17 years. Do you want to win an ego thing with your narcissistic megalomaniac? I need the courts to do stuff the way I want to. Or do you want to go in on a rescue mission and get your kids? If some Navy SEALs are going in to rescue some prisoner of war, and they had a game plan, and they realized, wait, this wasn't diagrammed the right way. We got to alternate. And somebody says, no, we're going to do it the way we want. And some guy says, we're going to get ambushed over here, you stupid jackass. Let's go this way. No, I came up with that plan. I want to stick to it. Your ego is your downfall. Your arrogant pride is your downfall. Go rescue your kids and get as much help as possible. And if you tried and you lost, then try again and try a different way and listen to somebody who won. Not for my sake, so I can gloat. Every time I have a guy who gives a testimony And I got countless testimonies, and I share some of them with the hashtag HIGC testimony. You can go on YouTube. Some of my Facebook might have it, but I get canceled on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. So I'm really focusing on making sure it gets on YouTube. But HIGC for how I got custody. HIGC testimony. That hashtag, you'll see a bunch of testimonies. So guys are going in and winning. They get with me. They lost in court. They want their kids. Some of you guys get so caught up in the battle of changing the system or how wrong they did you that you're focused on getting revenge on that judge or that guardian ad litem or whoever. Go get that later after you go get your kid. I sued a guardian ad litem in small claims court. I tried to get restraining orders twice against my baby's mom's attorney. I filed bar complaints against both guardian ad litems. I had two different guardian ad litems over two different court actions, a modification and the original custody battle. I filed several bar complaints against the mother's second attorney. I filed one against the first one. The second one, he got in trouble for using a racial slur against an attorney. I found that out because I got off my ass and I actually digged for answers. I didn't sit there like some of you guys, you'll have a fight and you just sit there. I can't believe they did this to me. I should have won. I made a good argument. I'm a good guy. Me, my way, ego. And here comes James Christian. I won in court. I got full custody of my daughter without an attorney in 7 months. Oh, that jerk. He's just bragging. No, I'm telling you the truth because I have actual order. I was a warehouse worker who flunked out of college, so it wasn't any genius thing conceived up in my head. I just had the heart of a dad who cared, and I was going to war. And if I lost, I looked for another answer. And then if I lost, I looked for another answer. And then I tried again and again. Some stuff I won. My first try at contempt, I won because I went in there aggressively and I had case law and I was attacking. If you didn't go into court and attack and get on the offensive and expose and try and get full custody away from an alienator and call the mother out, you didn't even attempt the basic baseline of effort. It'd be like if I want to build some muscle and I go to the gym once and I do some light weight to get loose and get back acclimated to lifting. So yeah, go to the gym for a week or two and do a lot of reps and really light weights. You don't tear anything and then jump in. But if you just do the light stuff and you leave, like, I can't believe I didn't put on 20 pounds of muscle in a month. That's stupid. You have to go to war on this stuff. Let's see if I got anything over here on. Is that the Facebook one? Okay, it's just alerting me that people are watching. Okay, so okay, to clarify the back pay, this is Herdahl 777 again, because mom's attorney said I need to back pay based on what support. I don't care what an attorney says. It matters what the law says. And then after what the law says, then the judge makes a court order. If you guys are saying, well, the attorney said this or that person said that, or my baby's mom's cousins, sisters, hairdressers, dog groomer said this, who cares? You're in a court of law. You go off of the law. Now, that wasn't just for the answer to this, but I'm saying this in general. A lot of you guys say, well, my friends told me I can't get this. Somebody will tell me, I'm on the phone, and I'm like, did you go pick up your kid from school? The mother isn't letting you see your kid. Go pick the kid up from school. Oh, somebody told me I can't do that. Who told you? They exert some effort and tell me who the hell they is. My friend, he went through a custody. Okay, did he win? No. Why are you listening to a loser? You guys listen to a whole bunch of losers and a whole bunch of idiots and people who've never been in family court. Because when you hear stuff that says, oh, you don't have to try that hard, just sit and stay in your comfort zone, you love that. So some stupid jackass who gives you some stupid jackassedness advice appeases your comfort zone. And so, okay, now I can just lay down. That's like having a fat slobby friend who said, yeah, I tried to work out and lift weights for a month too, and I didn't get any muscle. It doesn't work. There's only a few guys out there with genetics. And now you got an excuse to never get in shape. So you stay fat and out of shape or whatever. Because somebody else, misery loves company. If somebody else appeases your laziness or your lack of desire or discipline to do something, then you get to sit and complain. Oh, misery loves company. And if you look at any CEO, any motivational speaker, any life coach, they'll say sometimes you got to cut the people off. If you want to get better, you got to cut the naysayers off and people that'll drag you down. You got to get in a different environment, and that might change stuff. So you can mentally talk yourself out of doing stuff, but then people come across me and think I'm an a-hole because I'm telling them there's another way, there's another chance. As long as your kid's alive, you should be going on a rescue mission. If your kid gets actually kidnapped by an actual total stranger, you wouldn't stop looking for them until somebody said we found the body. I know I wouldn't. I was a beta most of my life, okay? Grew up with three sisters. You know, I played football and basketball. I was competitive. The ego came out. Sometimes the alpha came out, but I was kind of a beta. And, you know, I let women, you know, I just let stuff roll off. It didn't bother me if they disrespected me. Now I know, you know, have some boundaries so I don't have to deal with that stuff. And I learned the hard way. But um when it came time to fight for my daughter, it was war with anybody who even looked at me the wrong way. My own family, my sister who's passed now, she said, James, just give her whatever she wants. You know, my two boyfriends that I had in the past decade, they got screwed in family court and they got railroaded. You're just going to give yourself an ulcer or a stroke. Just give her what she wants for your own sake, your own peace. I was like, I can't do that. I had every excuse. See, you guys out there that don't like me or don't like my tone when I tell you to grow some balls and stop being a pussy. You know, I never even used to like to use that word, you know, but it's the most appropriate word for this stuff because when it comes down to it, all the excuse makers, like the dad who terminated his rights and he's telling people, do what's best for your kids and lay down the weapon and don't fight. Well, that means you're surrendering the kids to a child abuser and you're surrendering your kids to being tormented and you're not protecting your kids. I don't care what hell I went through. I brought my child into the world. It's not her fault that she was stuck in this conflict situation. I've had guys I've talked to recently like, well, I don't want to go pick up the kid from school and take the kid because now my kid's in a war zone and we're playing tug of war. Okay, so you're going to let her just take your kid away from you and then the child is starving of a father? If she starves the child of food, are you going to say, well, I don't want to take the kid away and give him food because then the mother's going to take the kid back and starve him. So I just want to share him. You see how stupid you sound saying I want to share and work with the terrorist? I want to negotiate with the terrorists. See, I eliminate all the pussy ass excuses. And even though, you know, I got custody of my daughter when she was 7 months old, I went to war, I was on the offensive, and I was relentless. I didn't know that I was engaging in the war of attrition. I stumbled across it. All I knew was that as long as I'm alive and I don't have equal access to my kid, I'm fighting for that. And it turned out that mentality that 99% of you don't even have. You just want to whine, cry, piss and moan and want some father's rights group to change the laws. And you're holding your breath waiting on that bull crap. And you'll spend all day blogging on Facebook about how corrupt the court system is, but you won't spend all day typing up a brief that helps argue why you should get custody and why the mother's bad. You put all your energy in a whole bunch of other stuff. But that confrontation, that conflict, and I used to avoid confrontation. If it made for peace, I would avoid confrontation. That's where I was kind of beta-ish also. And when it got to be too much, then I'd explode or then I'd get mad or whatever. The people are like, oh my God, that's not you or whatever. Because I got tired of it just like any other dude would. But because I didn't set boundaries enough up front. But what I'm saying is I didn't know anything about this stuff. And I stumbled across the war of attrition and it worked for me and it's worked for thousands of people. And you guys are going to tell me it doesn't work, it can't work because I went to one hearing and I lost because I did this and that. You didn't do it right. I guarantee you there's something you didn't do right. And just like anybody else who fails in life or makes a mistake or loses out on something, somebody gets cut from a basketball team, somebody who didn't get a job or performed poorly at a job interview. You know, my daughter, she had a job and it was just, you know, she has you know, how people have different learning styles. The way that job worked just didn't jive with her you know, she has a real artistic side and stuff. That job just didn't work. They didn't train her right and they let her go. Right. The day I picked her up when they let her go, we walked into another place and she applied for something and they hired her on the spot because I told her how to interview and something passed down from my dad, how to interview and ask questions. The guy was so impressed that she was asking questions. He never had any interviewer ask him questions or have questions ready to ask him ahead of time. And I told her to write out 2 or 3 questions and we went over that stuff and prepared and she got hired on the spot. She could have been depressed over that job or that being a failure. I think she was more relieved, But then boom, we went right into another place. And then she's working with a couple people who are friends of hers. And she had some cool friendships develop out of it. So you can sit and sulk and whine, cry, piss and moan. You know, when I first went to court, first hearing, mother tried to get a restraining order against me. Temporary order was put in place. If I would have known what I know now, I would have went to do a motion to quash and probably got rid of it right away. But I had a court hearing. The judge said, oh, you guys need to go to family court. I don't know family court. I'm a criminal judge. Go to family court, get a parenting plan, come back in 2 weeks. I'll keep the restraining order in place just for 2 weeks, just in case James is bad. Then we came back. He goes, did you get a parenting plan? I said, no, we can't get a hearing for another 2 weeks. It's not that easy, not that fast. He goes, okay, 2 more weeks and it falls off. So I kind of won, but I didn't fully crush her. But I made her look stupid, and the judge didn't believe it, but he kept it alive. And then she never went for a restraining order the rest of the way because I was smart and I didn't even do anything that even looked like I was trying to contact her, and I distanced myself from her. That was common sense. A lot of guys will call somebody up or argue with them or argue with the attorney or tell a third party to talk to the person, and they look like they're stalking and harassing her. You need to know the art of cutting somebody off and proving to the court you don't care. I told the court with the restraining order hearing, I was like, they're sitting there because the mother had all these witnesses saying, oh, James calls the house, a couple of her roommates. James calls the house and this and that. I said, Your Honor, wait a minute. I just realized they're making it look like I'm calling the house to talk to the mother. All I want to do is find out how my daughter's doing. I could care less whether I talk to the mother ever again. I just want to be an involved father. And the judge's like, whoa, then we don't even need a restraining order. And then her fans that were there like, no, save her. He goes, okay, I'll put it in place for 2 more weeks, but it drops off. Don't come to my court ever again. Bye. He saw it for what it was. So it really was a win. It should have been dropped, but in the end, a couple weeks later, it was a win. Then I went to court and I got 0 visitation. The family law commissioner said, you did a great job with support and financial stuff. But I can't give any visitation. We have to investigate you and appoint a guardian ad litem. That was some utter bullcrap because Troxel versus Granville says, we assume you act in the child's best interest. I don't got to prove that I'm a good dad. And any of you guys that went to court and you never cited Troxel, your attorney's an idiot if you have an attorney. If you've been watching my videos and you didn't use Troxel, you're an idiot. If this is your first time hearing it, you should be getting a consult with me for your own sake. Like I said, when people do testimonies and stuff, I give guys props for actually going through the hard work of doing this stuff. Even if I guide them or I give them steps or give them direction and stuff, you still have to do it. Just like a coach who tells you step by step, or a personal trainer gives you a diet and a weightlifting plan, and then you get the body that you wanted in 6 months. Your trainer is still going to give you props for you doing it because you had to do it. Even if they came up with the program, like you could be thankful they came up with the program. But you still do it. So I'm not here to gloat over myself. So when I tell you you're dumb to not get a consult with me, you are, because I wish I had somebody like me now. Back then in 2001, my 7-month custody battle would have lasted 2.5, 3 months. It's dumb to not get help from somebody who won what you're trying to win. And then people go out and talk to present father because he's nice and he makes you feel good because misery loves company, and losers getting together to talk about their losses makes you feel good. So you pay him $250 an hour for what? To learn how his kids got abused after he served them up to the mother when he should have got her on supervised visits? Some of you guys may have talked to Judge Anthony for $750 an hour. Everybody I've talked to said all they learned was narcissist this, narcissist that. $750 an hour from a judge who said, I was an attorney for 15 years. I was a judge for 5 years. I never knew how bad family court was until I had to go through it myself. Now, there's some bit of truth like that. You don't know exactly the intensity of the pain, but he should have had some kind of idea as an attorney or judge, which shows how callous and sociopathic he was telling on himself. And you want to go pay $750 an hour just because somebody has a title judge? He was part of the system that's trying to destroy you. It's insane to me. Like present father, he's had attorneys throughout his whole case, and just now he's saying you can represent yourself. He acted like you had to get an attorney for so long, but now that another attorney from Dad's law school, I forget his name, is it David Pissar, something like that. The attorney from Dad's law school has a book for $45 or so that teaches dads how to represent themselves in court. So Randy from Present Father says, he goes, not all of us can afford $400 an hour. This is a great book. I did a deep dive and I'm talking to an attorney with 27 years experience. And this book lays it out simply. Okay, where's the testimonies? I haven't seen one testimony from some dad who used it and kicked butt in court. And you're blindly trusting an attorney, and you preach all the time that the system's corrupt. It's made by attorneys. The attorneys write the laws and the rules, and they become judges. And because Randy from Present Father is getting commission off of selling that book, he'll promote that book. And he used attorneys. He never represented himself. But for a while, there's plenty of information out there, like my page and some other pages that you can represent yourself. But Randy never told that to his followers. And now he's charging them $250 an hour to listen to his loser advice. It's that's the insanity of what's going on here. You guys want to talk about family court. It's not changing. It's not going away. Get over it. Do you want to go rescue your kid or not? Do you want to give it your all or not? One of my motivations was I was going to face my daughter when she was 18 and be able to say I gave it my all. It turns out giving it my all for 7 months got me custody. I've had other dads who won faster. As soon as they decided to stop being a pussy and grow some balls and get on the offensive, the mother couldn't take it. She was so used to punking him because he was such a simp little bitch in the relationship. And after that, and his attorney's a simp, and they're simping, and they're bowing down to the mother, and they're not doing anything and getting on the offensive. There's no reason for the mother to surrender. But if you get on the offensive and slap the mother around and do depositions and do discovery, get on the offensive and do reconsideration if you lose a hearing, and try again and move from a commissioner to a judge and do a revision or do an appeal from a magistrate or friend of the court and get on the offensive. Sometimes these women, they surrender immediately because they can't believe you have the audacity to stand up to them. You're dragging your own slow, prolonged death out by not fighting. Just think like somebody being hauled off by a couple, like some enemy, some prisoner of war, and a couple of people grab them and haul them off, and you don't put up a fight. You're like, oh, let me just see how long I can live until they go and torture me and stuff, and they're going to torture you and do whatever. If you stand up and fight, you might get killed right there in the spot, but you might escape, or you might kill them, or you might both go down swinging, or you might like say, hey, I'll let you go because you got them with the gun to their head or whatever. Okay, let me see if there's a in Washington, if you have a lawyer and you're needing ex parte for emergency orders for regaining custody, then would it be frowned upon by the court if you proceed to represent yourself pro se? All I ever talk about on this page is going pro se. It's not limited to court and not ex parte. I've had a bunch of guys win in ex parte, a motion to quash a restraining order. And they got rid of the emergency restraining order before they even had the return hearing. I've had guys get orders vacated. I've had guys go and get ex parte. I got an ex parte domestic violence protection order against a chick I dated a few years ago, representing myself. So the fact that you're asking, would it be frowned upon? You never give a crap on what's going to be frowned upon. If the law allows it, go do it. The law allows you to represent yourself, whether it's frowned upon by any. See, this is when we worry about peer pressure. Why do you give a rat's ass what some lawyer, guardian ad litem, judge, or anybody says? If the law says it and they don't like it, that's their problem. They're not following the law. If you're going to spend your court case thinking about how would this look to somebody, what's the optics? Now, there's games to be played with optics when you're getting on the offensive, but you're like, I don't want to get on the offensive, or I don't want to do this and that because it'll look bad or hurt somebody's feelings. Who gives a flying frick? I went into court. I had enemies surrounding me. The mother had like four or five witnesses against me, including ex-girlfriend that she wanted to kill, a lady that I dated that she hated. And actually, when this chick walked into court, the mother was up front at the front of the courthouse before the judge came out, and she turns around, looks at me like look who I got on my side when this chick came in, and she hated this chick, but that was her number one star witness. And then that chick came back 4 years later, and the mother tried to get another restraining order after I had no contact with her for several years, except delivering papers. And she tried to construe that as harassing her. And the mother tried 7 different times to get restraining orders against me and lost every time. I got a protection order against a chick several years ago. And then she tried to retaliate 4 different times. And then went to court on the 4th time. She was so frustrated, she told the judge to F off in open court twice. And they had to get a sheriff to escort her out of there. So everything should be done ex parte. Okay, you said without firing the lawyer first. You cannot represent yourself if you have a lawyer. The lawyer has to speak for you. So that is frowned upon because you cannot do it. That's why I said, follow the law and follow the rules. You cannot have a lawyer and go in and represent yourself. So how do you beat the Fed programs? I don't know what that means. The money flow. So how do you overcome that stuff? How? So Jonathan, you're being extremely vague. I need you to be specific and tell me what you're talking about. If you're saying, you are not going to change the Title 4D system with child support and money and Joe Biden's Violence Against Women Act that gives bonus money to domestic violence. See, you're talking about the system. Do you want to win your case? You sound like you're totally lost on every angle. You should get a consult with me. Or if you don't want to get a consult with me and pay for a consult, watch all my free videos. Because I don't even know what you're talking about. How do you beat the Fed programs? I don't even know what that means. There's a million federal programs out there. What are you talking about? Are you talking about Title 4D? Are you talking about the reimbursement to the prosecutors for domestic violence? Are you talking about something in family court? That's the only federal stuff there. I just gave the main answer. If you engage in the war of attrition and get on the offensive and fight for full custody and use all the tools and weapons available to do that and call the mother out. If maybe you don't have kids and you only have a domestic violence case, but you need to get on the offensive. I have a packet defending against a restraining order. Same arguments in criminal court are in there. Not all of them, but some of them. I have a packet for $45 defending against a restraining order. I have guys who didn't even get a consult with me. They got that packet and they fought off domestic violence protection orders. Because in there, I quote and cite many, many sources of attorneys, judges, and bar associations that say that this is the epidemic of women lying about domestic violence. If you go in there and say this lady's lying, that's your word versus hers to the judge. If you go in there and say this is another case of a woman lying and abusing the system for leverage in a custody case or to get back at me, and there's an epidemic in America of women doing this, according to the California Bar Association, the family law section of the California Bar, the Illinois Bar Journal, a Harvard law professor in the documentary Divorce Corp, this judge, that judge. There's examples of crazy stuff. There's an example of David Letterman, the late night talk show host. Some lady in New Mexico got an emergency ex parte restraining order against him because he was harassed. She said, he's harassing me through the television and he wants me real bad. She actually got an ex parte restraining order. That just goes to show that they don't even read that stuff. Somebody goes in and submits it and they're like, sign it and leave. I've been in an ex parte where I was getting an order to show cause for contempt. And the judge is in there flirting with the clerk and talking to her. And then he looks up, I slide him some papers and he signs it and then he gives it back. He didn't even look, he didn't even read the stuff. So how you win is the war of attrition. That's the short answer. How you do that? It all depends. I need to know what all I know is that you caught a criminal. This is Jonathan here. All I know is that you caught a criminal domestic violence case. How you beat that is get on the offensive and destroy the credibility of the witnesses against you. And then also present evidence of how women lie about this stuff all the time. And do a deposition on the witnesses against you. If there's only one, do a deposition on her. Your attorney should have already offered that. That's the number one weapon available. Watch my video on doing depositions. How do you overcome that stuff? How? Okay. I don't know what you're even talking about. All I know is you said the Fed programs and the money flow. So that's so vague. I don't know what you're talking about. So you have to be a little bit more specific. If you can't be more specific, you're missing out on an opportunity to get a free answer right here if you're not going to be specific with me. So you got to care enough about your own freedom or your case to say, this is the thing I have a question about, instead of just vaguely throw out and you expect me to read your mind. You're being emotional right now. So you guys got to, you may not know how the legal mumble jumble what to say, but like If this guy has a custody case and he has a domestic violence protection order based on a criminal case and he can't see his kid and he's on supervised visitation, those are specific issues I could address. But he doesn't even tell me what's going on in his case, so I have no idea what he's talking about. And this is what happens. People come and say, the system sucks and everything. What do I do, James? I don't know what's going on in your case. The best thing that you could do, though, is to get a one-on-one consult with me. We can go over your case and break it down. All of you. If you've never had a consult with me, you are missing out. Every single person I've ever consulted with said, you told me more in an hour than my attorneys told me the past couple months or the past year or ever. I've had several people tell me they've had more than one attorney and they never heard the information they got from me in 1 hour. And they spent $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 on attorneys. I'm the one who should be charging $250 an hour, and I'm not. And some people think I'm a con artist or ripoff. Family Court Corner, present father, $250 an hour. Judge Anthony, $750 an hour. And I don't know what else other people are doing. I know they're all like $150 an hour and more. The rest of them, I charge $80 an hour. I try and make it affordable for people, but you know, some people tell me, oh, if you raise your rates, you'll look more legit, and it's an optic thing, so more people will buy it. I don't want to do that, but it looks like since everybody's buying all the expensive con artist ripoff a-holes, and I'm going broke doing this stuff, and people are saying I'm a con artist. This stuff doesn't make any sense. You know, again, I just did a video that had a lot of viewership compared to some of my recent videos, which means people saw the topic and they're lost on the topic, relocation cases. 1,000-something people watch. There should at least been 100 people calling me after that. Nobody called me about it. I have a video that has almost 100,000 views. I've probably had about 20 calls based on that. Everybody in there is whining, crying, pissing and moaning, whining, crying. That's why I have zero tolerance for that stuff. I've been dealing with it for 25 years. Men are pussy-ass cowards for the most part. 1% of the guys that ever watch my videos are going to actually follow through and do something about their case. Now, I could look at the analysis of that and charge, you know, $400 an hour because I say I get better results than attorneys, which I do. But I don't want to con you guys. The fact that I charge so little. And then on top of that, I show you my winning orders. I show you my custody win. I show you my contempt win. And you see my signature representing myself. And then on the other side of the page, the mother's attorney, the mother's signature, and the guardian ad litem who hated my guts. I've destroyed guardian ad litem. Every single guardian ad litem report. There's 5 or 6 of them in 2 different cases. Thrown out. The court didn't care what they said. I won against guardian ad litems. I had one they disregarded what the guardian ad litem said, and they just found the mother in contempt anyway, even though the guardian ad litem said, oh, it's a misunderstanding, poor lady. One time they said the guardian ad litem's report is not credible because James pointed out these contradictions because I was on the offensive and aggressive with it. And you guys sit back and just hope the guardian ad litem will read your mind and you don't want to say anything bad about the mother. You think it's a game of whoever's nicest. Show me in the law where it says whoever's the nicest parent gets custody. Show me. Why the F are you trying to be the nice person and do what looks good and is nicer than the other side when it doesn't say that's a factor in the law? The mother's committed child abuse, alienation, which is just as traumatic as physical and sexual abuse. How come you're not exposing her for alienation? When that's just as bad as molest. If the mother's boyfriend was molesting the kid, would you hide that also? If you would, you're a pussy ass bitch. That's putting it nicely. If your kid is getting molested, if you sit back and do nothing, you're culpable because you're the dad. You're supposed to go rescue your kid. You would be calling the cops and hounding the crap out of them, saying, arrest this guy or stop this from happening. Or if your kid got kidnapped, you would say, go look for my kid. My kid was last into this park. Somebody grabbed the kid in a van and got a license plate. We got all the information. What are you waiting for? You'd be at the police office. But then when it comes to family court, your attorney says, stand down. Don't say anything. You're like, okay. Oh, okay, dear. I won't say anything bad about her. This is what's backwards about the family court system. The fact that we're pussy-ass bitches and we won't stand up and rescue our kids, and we let a child abuser abuse our kids, which is just as bad. The alienation is just as bad as a child molester, and you don't do anything about it, and you don't even tell the judge about this science because you're afraid what the judge will think. When a judge, it becomes a judge because they're supposed to be thick-skinned. You could be obnoxious in court, and it shouldn't affect their judgment. They can say, you know what, I don't like you, but what you're saying is true, and we're supposed to go off the facts, and I'm not supposed to get my emotions involved. Now, you don't want to be an asshole for the fun of it. Now, I did it. I told my judge that after I reversed my judge in the Court of Appeals, and I show you that winning order. How many attorneys won in the Court of Appeals? Some of them don't ever go there. I won in the Court of Appeals twice without an attorney. In a short period of time when I had an attorney, I lost something in court with him, and I went to the Court of Appeals and an interlocutory or motion for discretionary review. The Court of Appeals said that they would review it and intervene, and the mother dropped the case because it was a wrap, because I won the motion for discretionary review, which is almost impossible to win. I show you guys these winning orders, and you still believe present father, who's a pathetic subhuman piece of shit that served up his kids to get him abused, and then he complained for a year about the abuse, and then you victim trauma bonded with him and watched him because he's encouraging guys to hang in there, which is to say, bend over and take it up the rear. Don't clap back at the mom. Don't talk bad about her. Just take it. While he's saying the mother is abusing my kids, and he's not doing anything about it. As far as I know, he didn't change custody with a temporary order. And then after a year or two of going through that divorce, now she says he can have custody. I don't even want it. That guy's a subhuman piece of shit. He served up his kids to be abused. And he's got hundreds of thousands of followers because it feels good for a dad who's on TV or on the internet to say how you feel. Are you following a page to get affirmed, or do you want to win your kids back? Are you here for the entertainment of James got custody, he got revenge on the system? How do I do it? Oh, it's hard, and you got to go through some stuff and learn some stuff or represent yourself. I can't do that. Quit. That's the average guy. That's why I'm either loved or hated. The people who actually want to really dive in. I have a guy in Georgia. He didn't even have all of his stuff together. He called me when he saw me online. He had a new kid about 1 year old. Baby's mom was playing games with Holden, and she's about to move to another state. And he got a hold of me. He went to court. They wouldn't even accept his paperwork. They rejected it at the counter, which they shouldn't do. They should let the judge decide whether it's legit paperwork. He had trouble getting a hearing, and then he finally got supervised visitation after a couple months. Then next thing you know, 3 months later, after he had like 4 or 5 consults with me, he called me back, and he's got 50-50. Now he's got a dilemma because she took off with the kid out of state. And then he did a writ of habeas corpus. The police got involved, and he got his kid back. Now he has full custody within a year of a toddler. Why? Because he got on the defensive and he went to war, and he didn't stop. He just called me the other day. He had another issue he needed a little enlightenment on, but he's also calling me back and telling me different things that I never even heard of that's found in constitutional case law. That's what I want to see happen. I want, the guys who mentored me, I'm smarter or did more than them. I want to share everything I know with the guy, with the dad, so he can learn even more than I know, and then maybe pass along to the next one. This guy's going to start helping people in Georgia now. I mean, that's what this should be about. But it's rare to find somebody that fights that hard. And then once a guy is done with this stuff, they're so traumatized they get out of it. The guy from a distance, father at a distance or whatever, he terminated his parental rights to keep the peace for the kids because the kids were in a tug of war. So he gave his kid totally up to the total control of the child abusing narcissistic mother. And he thinks he's some hero for doing it. He's trying to convince people that's the perspective that you should have. And he had attorneys, and he didn't fight. And the way he talks, you could tell he's a total pussy and a softie. It's the entire polar opposite. He's starting a little cult where everybody's like, yeah, I feel you. It makes sense. And I understand. Thanks for empathizing. I feel the same way. Let me get back to this stuff. I don't want to ramble off too far. Okay, so I have a Facebook one. John says, insane, jealous women can destroy a father-child bond like nobody else can. Yep, but when they try and do it, you need to go to war. If they abuse the system the right way and you don't fight, they'll automatically win. If you go toe-to-toe and fight fire with fire, you can win and get your kids back. I stopped counting at 300 the number of dads I helped get full custody. And it would be thousands more if dads who want their kids would actually start to fight like I fought. It'd be thousands more. Okay. I'm asking to change the laws is a loser mentality. People already in a losing mindset. It's not very worth reasoning with them unless they genuinely want to actually put the work to do it. Well, here's the thing. If you pass a 50-50 presumptuous law, there's always going to be an exception: domestic violence and child abuse. What I say is the obvious thing that I've been saying this for years. If you're going to make a 50-50 law, say 50-50 with both parents, unless there's a criminal conviction in criminal court of child abuse. If it's domestic violence, then okay, stay away from the mother. If there's no finding of child abuse or pedophilia or sexual assault of a child, then you're presumed to be a good parent. Because in family court, it's up to one judge by preponderance of evidence. In criminal court, it's a jury of your peers beyond a reasonable doubt. What we have is this radical feminist influence that all these men are getting away with domestic violence. So we created this preponderance evidence burden, which is 51-49, more likely than not. It's just whatever the judge feels, whoever the judge believes a little more than the other. And it's not clear and it's not convincing. It's just more likely than not. It's a gamble. It's more likely if I was to gamble that that's the right person. The next level is clear, cogent, and convincing. So that means preponderance evidence isn't clear and it's not convincing. They weren't convinced. They were just like, well, it's more likely than not. And you get your constitutional right, your kids taken away, you can get kicked out of your house, your money taken from you and passed the other person as custodial parent. So you get a violation of 3 constitutional rights, excuse me, based on a guess that one person is right. It's not due process. And you can't have constitutional rights taken away without due process. See, I'm putting a bunch of different things together that I know off the top of my head because I actually studied this stuff. You guys should be able to do the same thing, especially if you get a consult with me and you decide to study. But most of you guys don't want to get a consult for some bizarre reason. You'd rather spend $10,000 on an attorney who's part of the corrupt system instead of spend $80 an hour with me once or twice or 3 times. It doesn't make any sense to me. When I knew Bob Carls of Dads Against Discrimination in Seattle, in Shoreline, Washington, in the Seattle area, when I saw him talk, immediately, the first time I saw him talk at a Dads Against Discrimination meeting, I knew I needed to talk to that guy. I set up an appointment. There were 20 other dads in the room at that meeting. None of them got an appointment with him. And it's still true today, 25 years later. 95% of dads are a bunch of pussy-ass bitches who won't take any action because they want somebody to feed them full custody and Amazon come to the door, knock, knock. Who is it? It's Amazon. Here's full custody for you. Here's 50-50. They want it without an effort. We're lazy and we're pussies. We're scared. Fear causes you to be paralyzed. Fear causes you to flee when no man pursues. That's a scripture. And it's totally true. When you get in a state of fear, you're running around paranoid about stuff that doesn't even exist. Just think about a paranoid schizophrenic person. Walking around talking to themselves, fearing this and fearing that, and stuff that doesn't even exist. Or people who never try anything. I don't know if I could go to college. I don't know if I can get a degree. I don't know if I should try that job. What if I don't get hired? So the thing you're worried about, people thinking about you, they're not even thinking about. They might think something in the moment, laugh at you, and then they forget about you. And you're revolving your whole life around what they're going to think for a split second, even if it's true. That's insane. The best thing you could do for yourself is talk to a winner, whether it's me or somebody else. But, I only know a couple other people out there doing what I'm doing and being honest about it and knowing what they're doing. So let me see here. I'm on the right screen here. Nope. Hold on a second, everybody. Let me just okay, so like one guy who was watching earlier, I wanted to get the exact name right. Fathers for Equal Rights, out of Florida, one location out of Florida. Lewis, who was on here, that guy's the real deal. I've talked to him. He talks about fighting. But if you look up, if you're in the Florida area, you can look him up. He's in southern. I think he's in southern Miami area or Homestead area. And I've worked with plenty of people in Florida. um, so fathersforequalrights.com, but without the S. They don't have the S on there. That's why I want to make sure I got that right. There's another guy that used to be part of Dads and Discrimination, DADS, dadsamerica.org. Their website's gone. They're gone. They died out like every other father's rights organization usually does. Out of New Jersey, and he does stuff on the New England area. That's about it. And the guy that I'm working with who's starting to help people in Georgia, that's about it. I don't know anybody else doing this stuff. So the best thing you can do is get help from a winner. Just like in any other area of life, you want to learn how to be an entrepreneur, talk to somebody who's a billionaire, who made money or who did business. You wouldn't talk to somebody who had business failures left and right. You wouldn't go to a camp trying to learn how to make a basketball team in high school. Go to a camp with somebody who never played basketball. And there's a Steph Curry or LeBron James or Michael Jordan camp down the street. You pick the winner. I've won in court and I show you my winning orders and I show you testimonies. There's nobody out. I never see a page where they have testimonies. And, you know, the testimonies I show, I'll show you the actual email from somebody, or it'll be a screenshot of what's on TikTok, because that makes it even more authentic, because I can't sit there and do a bunch of different social media pages and fake those. And those, if you go on those pages, you see a whole history there. There's no way that I could do that. I don't see any testimonies from these people. Sometimes there's testimonies where it's just a quote by JC or BD or NM. And it's just they could have just made that up. I show you actual testimonies, actual emails. I show you my winning orders themselves should be enough to prove to you I know what I'm talking about. Why wouldn't you want to get help from somebody when you're lost? Even if you know something about parenting plans and the statutes and you're dealing with false allegations, domestic violence, you don't know how to deal with that. Why wouldn't you get help for that area? Nobody knows all of this stuff. I don't know all of it, but I know 1,000 times more than you do. Why wouldn't you want to get help? Okay. Let me see this one right here. Dang, I missed a bunch of comments. So there's only one comment on Facebook, but or let's see. Yeah. Okay, so let me catch up to the YouTube comments, and then I'm probably gonna have to wrap it up. Let's see. Mother's being charged with class 3 felonies for custodial interference. Plea deal was 1 felony, restitution, probation. She declined for jury trial. Pre-trial. Will she get the felony? I have no idea. There is no way I could actually predict what's going to happen. That's like asking me who's going to win the game. I mean, if we know, like, everybody thought the Seahawks were going to win the Super Bowl, but I mean, there's still a chance. You know, everybody thought New England went into the Super Bowl undefeated with Tom Brady and Randy Moss, and they lost. I cannot possibly tell. How could you even ask me what's going to be the result? So she's not going to get a jury trial. She's going to have a judicial trial, a bench trial. I can't predict that. I don't know anything about the case. I don't know those people who are on there. Even if I knew them, I can't know what they're going to conclude. I'm not going to be in the jury. So there is no way I could possibly know that. The FCC said, I will get primary placement if she's charged and found. Okay, I don't care what anybody says. I care about what actually happens when it happens. Like Marshawn Lynch said in the Super Bowl several years ago, I'm about that action. I don't want to sit here and talk to the media about what's going to happen and how we practice and how he just wants to go play the game. If I sat here and said, this is my best guess of what's going to happen and it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter what I said. Why would we talk about that? 90% of cases settle out of court. So I believe with this settle at pretrial, this will settle at pretrial. I mean, it's actually 95%. So if you're on the offensive and the other side, I mean, if she's got a felony and stuff, you got all the leverage in the settlement negotiation. So that's where guys should get themselves. Sometimes there's guys who they're losing or they're every other weekend, but they're hounding away and hammering away and hammering away. And the mother says, what's going to take for you to settle? And you get close to trial. And she says, I'll give you 60-40. You're like, I'm settling on nothing less than 50-50. Well, fine. Then just go to trial. Say, okay, I'll go to trial. I'm representing myself. Trial is going to be 3 or 4 days. I'm going to put you on the stand for a day. I'm going to be on the stand for a day. You're going to have your couple of days, and then I have 4 or 5 witnesses, and it's going to cost you $15,000. And I'm going to ask the court to give you a mental health evaluation. I'm going for full custody. You've been alienating, and she probably doesn't want to take that risk. And all you're asking is for her to come up from 60-40 to 50-50. You got all the leverage in the negotiation. But most guys come close to trial and they chicken out and they say, please make it go away. And you show your cards. How many of you, if you're playing poker or blackjack or whatever, you turn around and show everybody your cards? Who does that? But men do it in family court all the time. Please, I beg of you, just give me a little more time with the kid. You're on supervised visitation. She's been bitch slapping you throughout the whole court case, and you're begging her to voluntarily give you extra time. You're talking to a terrorist. You don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't have a chance. You have no leverage. The leverage is you pounding away and hammering away and beating her down into the ground and fighting, even if your court orders aren't that great. This is not complicated. And then you turn around and beg and say, I'm showing you my cards. I'm desperate. Instead of like, well, I'll just go to trial then. I got nothing to lose. And that's usually what it is. You got nothing to lose. You got nowhere to go but up. She has everything to lose. Now, some women will still take it to trial to fight, just to fight. But there's a bunch of them who will surrender if you even just bluff like that. But guys are so stupid and so dumb, they won't do stuff that they would do in regular life. In regular life, you don't show your hand. You don't show your cards. If you're in a confrontation on the street, even if you're scared, you act tough. And most guys respect the other guy because they don't know whether they got a weapon, whether they know jujitsu or something crazy or whatever, or they're a street fighter. So you usually you try and walk away peacefully. And so the way you put up a front and don't show your poker face or don't show that you're scared, everybody walks away peacefully. But in family court, you lose that normal manly intuition. Why? Because you got Jezebel casting a spell over you and you're walking around paranoid and fear and in your emotions because you got slapped around at a couple hearings and you're traumatized and you're in your feelings and you're being feminine instead of logical and seeking delayed gratification. Okay, if I tough it out right now, if I go through this, if you make up your mind in your court battle, I'm going to war. It's going to be hell. I will suffer. I will be slandered and lied about. It's easier dealing with it when it comes, as opposed to like, oh, this shouldn't happen to me. I should automatically get this. Why is this happening? Every time that if you know going into a boxing match that you're going to get punched, then you counter punch and you're ready for that stuff. If you go into a fight expecting the other side not to hit you, then it's going to hurt even worse every time they do because you're expecting to never get hurt or scratched. Or you play a football game, expect to not get hit or not be in pain or whatever. You're in pain. Oh, I got to sit down on silent. I'm in pain. Like that comes with the game. You play anyway. But you guys go into family court expecting to never get hit or touched or scratched and come out unscathed. You're torturing yourself because your mentality is that of a pussy. To put it very nicely, I'm putting it extremely nicely. How can you do that to your own child? You're the one who can rescue your child from all this stuff. You're the only one who can rescue it. Do you think the mother's attorney cares about the father-child relationship? No. The narcissistic mother? No. The radical feminist, man-hating butch guardian ad litem? No. The judge? Not really. Until you overwhelmingly convince them how drastic it is and how it is. See, some of you guys still don't even have the concept, even though I talk about it all the time. You can go in and tell the judge, you have a duty and responsibility to rescue kids from abuse. You wouldn't let a kid get starved for medicine or food or let a kid get molested or beat up. You would immediately take a kid out of that home. That same torment and pain and suffering is going on right now. And you have a duty of care and responsibility to yank that kid up out of there. And the factors in the law favor me. And you don't have to say, oh, I don't know. It's only a 3-year-old. I don't know if you can handle him. Because Troxel versus Granville says you have to assume I will do what's best for that kid. You have to assume the same of the mother. But now that we looked at the evidence, she's a child abusing, narcissistic, mentally ill, out of control, unfit parent. And see, none of you, except for very few, will go in and talk like that in court. And that's why you lose. And then the next generation of guys say, how come nobody's doing anything about the system? Because the previous pussy ass bitches never did anything about it. And you're the next one doing the lay down, take it up the rear, pussy ass bitch stuff, and thinking that magically the judge is going to play Miss Cleo's psychic crystal ball reader and say, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, I see what's going on behind closed doors with the mother. You have to expose it to the court what's going on behind closed doors. But your lawyer says, oh, don't do that. That'll look bad. How does your lawyer know that? Because when they got out of law school, that prissy little fed with a golden spoon his whole life, prissy little yuppie comes out of law school and the law firm says, don't attack the mother. And they just do it. Why? Just because that's the way they've always done it. But if you look at the law and look at case law and look at the science and look at the statistics, everybody should urgently be trying to rescue kids from a single mother home and place the kids with the father. But they won't do it. Why? Because they don't know this stuff. Why? Because they go to judicial seminars that are paid for by Joe Biden's Violence Against Women Act. There's billions of dollars dumped into judicial seminars that are run by radical feminists and women or influencers or whatever. There's been judicial seminars where judges say, sayonara, forget you dads and your constitutional right. You're out of here. You're out in the street. Find a place, and laughing about it, talking about like a domestic violence seminar or whatever. And nobody's countering that culture. Your number one enemy is the culture of the court, along with the mother. You beat the mother through the war of attrition. The culture of the court, you go in there and influence it. Just think if no civil rights attorneys ever came along. And like I said, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, or whatever. If none of them came along, the culture might have never changed. It took some people, only like, David Goggins, for those of you know who he is, triathlete, super athlete, 100-mile marathon runner, ex-Navy SEAL. Lewis said I got it right without the S on the fathersforequalrights.com without the S at the end. Fathers for Equal Right. But David Goggins said, in a war, like 10% of the people are total casualties. Like 80% of them shouldn't even be there. They're just targets. And then another 10% do all the heavy work. And 1% of them are actual warriors. Any kind of movement, only a few people stand up for stuff. Martin Luther King did not have 1 million people marching with him every time he marched. In the Revolutionary War, only 7% of people took up arms. So there's not going to be too many people who are out here changing the system, but everybody can if they wanted to, but nobody wants this information. There's people who tell me, man, if I would have known you 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, my stuff would have been the same. You didn't get off your lazy butt and look for me because I was easily found by people in Europe, Canada, every state in America, and Australia and New Zealand, all the Western continents and countries. And some African ones, some Middle East ones, but all the Western countries. I've been found since 2008 when I first got on the internet. You just didn't care, and you didn't think outside the box. You went with your attorney, and you were like a slave, subject to the attorney. You didn't follow your conscience. You know what I did? I followed my conscience. When my sister told me just give up and give her what she wants, my conscience said no. I followed my conscience. When police told me certain things or lawyers told me certain, Goldberg and Jones, a father's rights attorneys law firm. When they told me that a laptop charger is not charging for some reason, so let me see what's going on here. When anybody told me anything, if it didn't fit with my conscience, I wasn't listening. The end. I wasn't listening. I'm not listening to somebody that violates my conscience, and I'm not going to do there we go. Okay. I'm not going to do what somebody tells me to do if it violates my conscience, because I have to live with that. Some total stranger is going to tell me, oh, don't fight for your kid this way or that way. And then they leave my life. And then my life with my kid is screwed because I listen to somebody passing by in my life. That's asinine. That's stupid. I don't know how anybody does that in any area of life, but people do it all the time. Okay. So, some judges have no judgment, they have no discernment, they don't have a conscience, and they're just doing what they always have done. 2 years, $30,000, Christian preaching. Yeah. After the first $5,000 that I've wasted on somebody, I'm not going to use them ever again if I didn't get results. You could walk into court for free and lose. Those guys who continually go to court and lose and spend up to $100,000, they could have walked into court with two hands tied behind their back and got the same thing if they lost. Why not lose for free at least? Fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark and brother is starting to rain. This is a war of attrition. Exactly. I got an ex parte grant. Oh, cool. Who's this? 2099 Able. I told PD police department to kick rocks because of your videos. Told them to kick rocks because of your videos. That's a repeat comment. Is there anything else on that? The kid's mom tried to serve me into handing over son who was 3 to 4 months old post NICU visit. I was not about it. Here goes somebody right there, right in the comments, standing up for themselves. And that lit a fire to keep me trying to get more time in custody. Right now, I gain full custody until next court date. Wow. See, there you go, you guys. Here's obviously I'm not doing this. Look, here's my hands. 2099 Able. Went to ex parte after a NICU visit, and now he's got custody of an infant, 3 to 4 months old. Right now, I gain full custody until next court date due to another incident with DV caught red-handed on the mom's part. Wow. So this guy's getting on the offensive. And see, another thing, when you guys do get on the offensive, you can't, like I had a guy who, he was doing a contempt motion. The mother slammed the door on his face, and he had a police officer going with him to pick up his kid. The mother basically told the police officer to F off or leave or whatever, slammed the door on his face. He did a contempt motion. The mother called the dad and said, please, I'll do whatever. Just drop the contempt motion. Then he called me and said, I'm thinking about dropping. I said, no, finish the job. Finish them. Just like in any horror movie, you finish off the creature that everybody's dealing with. Or, in a serial killer movie or whatever, you finish them off. If they're not in jail, you take them out. You don't leave room for a psychopath. Some of these parents these narcissistic child abusing parents, they only know stuff by force, just like dealing with a terrorist. They only know force. They don't know, like you say, oh, I gave him a lesson. I tried a contempt motion and then I dropped it. No. And he finished it off and he won. And that lady never did contempt again, as far as I know. I didn't talk to him after that. He never had to call me again. You got to finish. You got to take the head. You got to finish them off. And then when you're in total control, then you can be an empathetic person. Then you could say, okay, I want the mom to see the kid and stuff. But while you're litigating, she's trying to steal your kid, and you have a chance, like Randy, present father. His attorney offered to go for supervised visitation. He should have went for it then. He's like, no, I want the kid to have a mother. For what? For what? For some brownie points? For your own simping mentality that radical feminists have brainwashed you into being a simp, into being a pushover, into being a PAB, punk ass bitch or pussy ass bitch? For what? What do you win? You are walking away from this court case with the court dictating your life with your kids. Why would you dilly-dally around because you're trying to win some brownie points from some fake ribbon committee that doesn't even exist because you feel like it's the right thing to do? A lot of these fathers' rights groups that say 50-50 is the way to go and stuff. No, a lot of times full custody is the way to go. And they won't even say, they're like, kids need both parents. We're not going to retaliate with the same thing. You better, you dumbass, because they're going to give custody to somebody. And they're so stupid, they don't realize if a dad gets custody, he can let the mother see the kids as much as he wants if he's in control. If the mom gets custody, you are not seeing those kids 1 minute more than the court order. And I have all kinds of guys say, I asked her for a little bit of time, or I asked her to swap and this and that. She wouldn't do it. She doesn't have to, you stupid jackass. That's like saying, I asked my employer to give me a bonus because I worked real hard. They don't have to do that if it's not in the contract. How are you that stupid? My gender is a bunch of feminine, fruity gay boys who think their feelings mean reality. You need to get out of your feminine feelings and start using logic and start having a warfare mentality. This is war over your kids. This case will dictate your life with your kids and basically, possibly, their mental health. and their identity and their confidence and how they deal with life. Why wouldn't you want to rescue your kids from the dangers that come with it? And the only way to rescue your kids is to go all out, just like anything else in life. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go with that. If any, I'll give you guys like a minute. If anybody had a question, this is your last shot at it. I'm gonna have to jump off here. But again, the best help that you could probably get is to get a one-on-one consult with a winner. I won in court over and over and over again. I destroyed attorneys and guardian items. If you don't believe me, go look at my flow page, which is linked under this video on YouTube. Should be, I'll have to do it later, but above the video on Facebook or the main page, it's all over my stuff. If you don't want to get a consult with me, watch all of my free videos. I got $50,000 worth of free videos, and you could go in and look by topic. If you don't want to look through everything, just look by topic. Oh, this one sounds interesting. There's a lot of videos where I'm spending a lot of time chewing dads out because that's the number one problem. You got all these weapons in warfare, and you're sitting in the middle of the battlefield going, "Oh, I'm scared. I don't hate these Afghans," or let's say Canada invaded us when China takes over Canada. They're trying to take over Canada so they can come and invade it. Let's say I like the Chinese. I like Canadians. Well, while you're sitting around pouting and not picking up a weapon, it's either kill or be killed. You're going to get taken out and be a casualty while you're whining and crying. If any of you guys ever saw Saving Private Ryan, there's a scene where they caught a German out in some open field, and they were digging up his grave, and then the kid who was he was the medic, he carried the bullets, or he was the translator. He was a big pacifist, little simpy, little wimpy dude. They all wanted to kill the guy. They found this German, Tom Hanks and his crew. And he's like, "We can't do this and this and that." And he convinced them to let the guy go, and they let the guy go. Guess what happened later in the movie? That guy killed one of those guys, and that little snippy dude was watching and crying. And then he eventually got so enraged that he shot the guy himself, the German himself, and took him out. But they suffered a casualty because they didn't cut the dude off. They didn't go for the throat. They didn't finish him off when they had a chance. And war is hell, and war is ugly. And I saw some guy say, who was a soldier, on Sean Ryan's show, and he's like, one time I thought about some guys I killed. I'm like, what if I would have met him at a coffee shop in France one time? Does he have a family? Would he be a nice, pleasant guy? And that's probably true. But when you're in the middle of a war and it's either kill or be killed, go home or lay down. That's the ugliness of war. And you had a kid with a crazy woman, and your kids, it's not their fault. Since you chose to bring them into this situation, whether you recognize it or not, and 99% of you saw the signs. So it's your fault that you had kids you were thirsty for love, one night stand, you were desperate and alone, so you didn't vet and didn't take time to court your woman and figure her out, or you got bamboozled. Every one of us gets bamboozled by a woman at least once in our life, probably. I got bamboozled once by some chick. Played damsel in distress. I believed it like a sucker and a dumbass, and I can own it and call it what it is. I had to get a protection order against her eventually. My baby's mom thought I could trust her even after we weren't together and work it out and be civil. I couldn't. So I was stupid for getting with her when I did. I felt like God was telling me, leave her alone, stay away from her, and I didn't listen, and that's the consequence I have. So I can't be mad at the rest of the world and everybody that I played with fire. Now it's over with and there's peace and everything, and my daughter's starting to have a good relationship with her mom, I think. I don't even bother with their side. I haven't talked to that chick in like 20 years, but I don't care. But I got on the offensive and went to war and got control of my kid, and I didn't stop. I wasn't going to stop until I got something fair, and it turned out the war of attrition, that warfare, that mentality is what actually works. So I'm going all the way. You're 1,000% correct. That's the only way to go. That's the only way to go with anything in life. Why won't you apply it? Why don't guys apply it in court? Oh, this is unfair. She shouldn't. Why can't she be reasonable? She's a woman. She's not going to think logically like a man. Get over that and go to war and make her think that way. That's the only way to do it. It's hard. Yeah. It sucks. Yeah. It's not fun getting lied about. Yeah. But your life with your kid is on the line. I always, give an example of the Indiana Jones movie. He's looking for the treasure or the prize at the other end of it, or he's stuck in a tunnel, or he's being trapped somewhere, and he risks his life because he has this prize at the end. The um, he was looking for the Holy Grail, or the cup of the Last Supper, and he's looking for this artifact or that artifact, and he's looking for the Ten Commandments. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. The container of the Ten Commandments. But when he came across dangers, there's a tunnel, and you got to think like it's an Indiana Jones movie. There's a tunnel. At the end of that tunnel, that you could see your kid standing there, and in the tunnel, there's booby traps. There's some knuckleheaded thugs and robbers and snakes and traps. Are you going to go through that tunnel? Now, you're not going to die in family court like Indiana Jones might, but the example is applicable. You're going to go for that because your kid's at the end and endure that stuff and give yourself the best chance to get something fair and get your life back with your kid? Or are you going to stand there and just sit there and, oh, that looks scary, it looks dark, and it looks like that's going to hurt, and I didn't do anything to these people, I just want my kid, why are they attacking me? It doesn't matter. It's the reality you live in. You either go through this tunnel and get your kid, or you don't. That's why I say you're either courageous or you're a quitter. There's no in between. There's no gray area here. You fight all out for your kid, or you quit on your kid. And it's the extreme opposite. You're either courageous or you're a pussy. There is no in between. That's just the way that it is. In sports, you're a winner or a loser. In the work field, you either get the contract, or you get the sale, or you don't. You either make your company $1 million and get a contract or a sale or a bid, or you don't. You're a winner or a loser. We don't get no participation trophies for being a Mr. Nice Guy in family court, okay? Grow some balls, be a man, learn how to fight the right way. If you don't know how, if you got an attorney and you can't light a fire on your attorney, get a consult with me. If you're lost and you're representing yourself, get a consult with me. Learn everything that you can. The average person who really masters this gets about 5 hours in with me. And then eventually when they get close to trial, they need about 5 hours to prepare for trial. That's the minimum if you want to get the basics down and master this stuff. And some people don't even want to get one consult. Some people get one consult, they get on the offensive, and then the mother surrenders because it's the first time they've actually grown some balls. I had a guy, he wasn't seeing his kid. The mother said, I'm going to destroy your life with the kid. She tore up his apartment, moved out, left, took the kid. And then I can't remember whether she started the case or he did, but he bombed her with a motion and discovery packet this thick. And she started crying like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to me, blah, blah, blah. Like when she did it was okay. I can't believe you're doing this to me. And they settled on 50-50. All he did was do a stack of paperwork. And I helped him for a few weeks. He spent a couple $100 with me, and he got his life with his kid. And people are arguing with me whether I'm a con artist or not. These guys got their life back with their kid for a few $100, and other guys are spending $100,000 on an attorney and losing. And they say, I spent $100,000 on an attorney. I'm not going to spend any money on you. You're taking advantage of guys during a time of grief. Yeah, so are the attorneys. So do psychologists. So do counselors. So do firemen. So do policemen. Everybody gets paid to solve a problem. I'm supposed to just do this for free and never eat? I'm giving you valuable information that costs 10 times as much from a con artist attorney, and I'm being honest with you guys, and people are still complaining. It's insane. Okay, anyway, like the Rocky movies, there is no tomorrow. Right, it's today. It's now. Decide now. I'm going to move forward. There won't be any miracles overnight, probably, but if you chip away and chip away, just like the dude in the movie with Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins where he escaped from prison, this Stephen King book. He chipped away and chipped away at that wall and he took his sweet time, and it took years probably, but he escaped, and he planned it out, and he escaped. Once he was ready to execute it, boom, the hammer came down, he got out, and all hell broke loose. So, okay, I'm gonna have to jump off here. You guys who are fighting the right way, keep up the good fight. You guys who don't know what you're doing, get some help or watch all my free videos. Check out my flow page with my winning orders. and at least look at the section on my flow page that says must see information. If you're not looking at must see information that's free from a dad who won in court and has helped thousands of dads win, I don't know what to tell you. You're a stupid jackass for not taking advantage of this information and learn how to fight for your kid. Your life with your kid is on the line. Take advantage of the free stuff at the very least. But ideally, if you really care and want to know everything, you should get a consult. You can call or text me at the number in the description, at the top of my page, or at the link, or whatever. So the numbers are usually in most videos. You can just read it in about every other video you look at. So, all right, all the best to you guys out there, wherever you're at in your case, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating and asking your questions.